Yeah, my name is indeed Olesja Hännikäinen and I'm a service designer. As a service designer, I create concepts and different services working together with our technology people, as well as strategy people and digital people. And we're a consultancy company, so everybody probably knows what Accenture is, right? Yeah? I would like to thank you very much for inviting me for this talk. It has been a pleasure to hear all of the diverse different aspects discussing cross-innovation. So we have creative here, we have academia, we have startups, and I'm here to talk from a really large corporation. And to put things into perspective, does anybody want to guess, without Googling, how much employees work for Accenture?
20,000.
How much?
20,000.
Any more guesses? 200,000. Any more guesses? Well, pretty close to 500,000. It's something like 460,000, something like this. So really, we're talking about large corporation. So I can't tell you all of the projects with Accenture has been doing because it's going to take me like half a year to get at least some kind of a catalog done. And by the time I'm done, there's going to be another catalog to be written down, right? But what I need to say to you about Liquid Studio is that if Accenture is a really large company that does enormous projects for customers and that can take years and they can be large infrastructure projects, Liquid Studio is kind of like a startup inside a large company. So we help our customers to innovate. And we help them to experiment with different technologies. And this concept of, does this work? Yeah, this works, great. So this concept, we have roughly 50 people with technical background. We belong to technology. And then we have a few designers, and then we work together with strategy. And the way we work is what we do is that we take our customers inside a project room, right? We bring all of the different capabilities. We have designers and technology people, and then we co-create together. So we really believe in design thinking, co-creation. That's how we work. And if Accenture projects are the ones, that take like years to get done, then we can do prototyping, we can do design sprints, proof of concepts. We do really much shorter things to try out and create different experiments, right? And this concept of Liquid Studio, it's quite new. It's roughly 2 years old. And there's a network of Liquid Studios around the world. And we choose to focus on XR, AI, of course. We have a great service design team, so service designers thinking about what's the value and human-centric approach. We have full-stack development, and we have also robotics team and hardware, so we're able to build physical prototypes inside our lab immediately when we need to do that, so you don't waste time waiting for something. And indeed, we have this network of Liquid Studios around the world, and each of them are unique. Somebody chooses to focus on blockchain, somebody chooses to focus on something else, and we collaborate together, or then we have different competence in different places. This is proving to be working a lot. But yeah, Accenture Technology Vision. So virtual reality, or extended reality in more general term, has been identified as a really strong brand already last year, the year before that. We just released our new technology vision, and we have XR there as well. But it's part of something larger. It's part of dark powers. Dark stands for distributed ledger technologies. A stands for AI, obviously, right? R stands for reality, and Q stands for quantum computing. And these are all of the things you need right now in order to innovate. Because we're living in a post-digital era, right? It's already a norm that everybody's doing digital products and doing digitalization well, but in order to be different, you have to put more effort. And based on this survey, IT and business executives have reported that their rate of innovation has accelerated significantly due to emerging technologies over the past 3 years. And it's expected, of course, to accelerate more. And we also see a lot more investments coming in XR. But what's in it for the end user? As a service designer, I always start with one question: why? Why are you doing something, and how can you make this out of value for a user? To simply put it, it's the way XR can help to transform how people experience information, places, and each other. And we're talking about shortening the physical distance. We're talking about also engaging, but there are so much different use cases and different things. But I wanted to structure this talk to talk about the phenomenon that leads up to emerging technologies evolving. And starting from questions like why would you be doing this? And I wanted to talk about different phenomena and what's going on in the world. So everybody's concerned about environment, right? I feel horribly guilty that I took a 25-minute flight yesterday here. I'm sorry, but there was no option to participate virtually in this conference yet, right? But yeah, so far, virtual reality is the closest thing we can have to teleportation. So we're shortening the distance. But another interesting phenomenon happening in the world right now is that, for example, AI is changing a lot the way work life is, right? We're losing jobs and we're going to be losing a lot more jobs in years to come, right? So what this means for companies and corporations is that you need to re-educate your talent. They need to learn new things, right? They need to, well, their roles can be very diverse or very different. There's pressure to learn faster, to adapt faster. And also there's pressure for companies to create, this kind of tailored employee experience because you want your talent to stay. And this leads us to a good point that, well, the rise of industrial XR, and these are the typical projects we at Accenture do. So you can see a picture here of my colleague Samu in our lab, and he's operating a 3D printer with smart glasses, right? So he probably necessarily didn't need any prior experience to that. He just puts on the glasses, he gets the instructions and all of the things, coming into his smart glasses immediately. Or then this picture below, it's an example of a 3D CAD model of some kind of a part from a large machinery. Think about some kind of, engine or something like this, right? So you can put on your HoloLens headset and you can dismantle it. And you can break it into pieces and see how it works. And that's the way you can train your employees maintenance issues, for example. Somebody starting a new role. And you can pre-test all of these things. So there's lots of benefits coming from augmented reality that can help you train your employees. They visualize better, it's very efficient, you can transfer skills more easily from one person to another. You have this possibility to practice without actually going to the real thing, right? You're really much prepared when you actually then go to change something. Or what this really means, apart from higher accessibility, is that you get this learning that is kind of also already tied to experience. And you can see also these sorts of articles about how it's going to be the fourth industrial revolution and so forth. And the good news, this is expected to grow. Think about it. By 2022, it's expected to grow to $6 billion, the market for virtual reality training. So good news for us, right? This is another example of the project we did. This is kind of like a VR experience for a wind turbine. You put on your headset and you have this opportunity to go to a wind turbine and have a look at it. You can see different kind of performance data there. You're standing on the edge on this really high thing. You look down and it feels so realistic. There's water underneath, right? And this kind of examples helps you as well to train your employees. You're getting experiential learning. You're getting much better engagement. And XR or VR training is really good for mirroring real-life situations. It's really good for simulation. And you can practice it repetitively, and you're saving costs because you're not actually sending anybody out there, right? You're also saving risks because it's easier to try on in a safe environment. So it's really, really good for hazardous and complex environments, but it's also really, really good collaboration because you can have teams of people collaborating in this particular situation in advance, and you visualize it better. But then, if you can put other technology, something else, something like with analytics, or you're tracking gestures to improve performance. If you combine with other technologies, you can develop even more intelligent solutions for training. And look at the results. We can have, for example, something like, there has been a report that 40% of surgeons that were trained in VR, they make less mistakes than those who were conventionally trained. Think about this. When you're studying to be a surgeon, and you have an opportunity to practice so much more in advance the situation, do you really get lots of hours of practice when you're studying at a university? Or then, simulations like, Walmart. Everybody has probably heard about this case, the Black Friday chaos. Really complex situation that involves, disorder and lots of people. You can train your employees in advance to this kind of a situation in advance. So it helps to simulate something unexpected. It helps you prepare and avoid mistakes, but it also can bring an environment into your classroom, like, for example, a construction site. So when you do things like this, there has been reports about saving time. So your learning is faster, but you also learn better. And there has been all sorts of research being done on this, but I don't know if any of you have read this article. So basically there was this research in Maryland University that different people were asked this kind of like, it was kind of a memory palace game. So they were asked to identify different pictures and then remember their positions. And those, there were two groups. The other ones that were doing, in virtual reality, they performed much better than those that were using desktop computers. One interesting thing is that they reported that they enjoyed the process more. Okay? So with this picture, I wanted kind of like to show that when you structure information in your brain, you go from that thing on the top into something more structured like this. So why is it that we learn better in XR or in virtual reality? One of the explanations can probably be this. It's a famous model of cone of learning, or also known cone of experience. It's coined long time ago by educator named Edgar Dale. But basically what it says that when you're studying something, and in 2 weeks' time, you're going to remember only 10% of what you read. Okay, academics are probably much more already advanced in this. They have totally better elasticity in their memory. But 20% of what you're hearing, 30% of looking at the pictures, 50% of seeing something like, combined, like a movie or a demonstration or kind of like somebody doing something. 70% if you're talking about this, so probably I'm going to remember only 70% of my presentation in 2 weeks' time, but 90% of doing the real thing, the power of simulation, right? Because you already take the environment as a granted, and then you just remember what you did there. When you did there, of course, you remember it, right? So basically what this means that with the less abstraction there is in your learning process, the better you're going to remember. Logical as that, right? So XR has the potential to decrease abstraction of your learning, and it increases your retention rate. But one of the most interesting things for me from that research when I read it was that people reported that they were able to focus better. And sometimes sitting in an open office really feels like this, right? How are you supposed to focus when you have all this information coming from different places? And this is the problem we have at all of the corporations and companies these days, right? Except for maybe some really nice startups when they have really cozy lounges and they have coffee machines and ice cream machines and everything else nice. But sometimes open office really feels like this. And this slide is supposed to, illustrate how messy the amount of information really comes. This is so busy. You have also different things coming in all the directions. And this is what it can feel like. You're sitting in an office and you have information coming here, and then there's like 14,000 emails in your inbox, and then you have to read this and you have to go that. And there has been reports about our somebody mentioned already earlier in this conference about our shrinking attention spans, right? So this is something that has been studied. You can believe it, you can believe it not, but young people, due to mobiles, can't focus that well, or, we always interrupted by something. And there's trends like, what we see trends, what this is causing is that, people start to like meditation and mindfulness, and there's all these calming apps, right? So what I'm trying to say is that if those guys in the research said that they learned better, and then they were able to focus, and then they enjoyed it, okay, they said like the time was kind of like left unnoticed and it was useful, does this mean that they actually reached a sense of flow, right? And this is something virtual reality can bring to us, sense of flow. So to recap quickly about what I just said, XR training can be more effective. You have better absorption of information. You get this experiential learning that you experience things. You get immersion and focus and sense of flow and much higher engagement. You also learn by accident, because when you're fun, it doesn't feel like learning, right? Or when you're immersed in an environment, it just happened. You didn't notice, you didn't effort of it, so it's kind of like by accident. And you're able to remotely train and get trained. So now it's time to start asking important questions about education. Can we make education more accessible and flexible? Well, if you can practice surgeon skills, in your living room in a headset, I'd say this is flexible and accessible, right? Can we make education more engaging and attractive? Well, everybody of you here interested in video games know what engagement and attractiveness is like, right? Can we increase motivation? Absolutely. And then I was really happy to hear from the previous speaker who was talking about that some of the educational institutions might be worried about their future, because if somebody can, utilize all of the things about how well and efficiently people learn in virtual reality, and you add motivation and engagement to it, and when you look at it, works as a market, you have two substitutes. Do you want to get your education here, or do you want to go to an old, boring institution? I'm sorry I said that. But yeah, phenomenon. I've been watching, kind of like what the internet has done to our information and data. It democratized it, right? Everybody can voice their opinion in blogs. Everybody can voice their opinion in Facebook. Or for example, when there's different kind of like political turmoil or something, you don't always have to turn on your TV to hear about that. You can have your friend writing something about, riots in Paris or something like this. So this has democratized our information flows. Sorry? Yeah, good point. But yeah, something like this. But then, is this something that XR can democratize to education? Food for thought. And when I really started thinking about this, I started thinking about phenomena in education. So what we have in Finland is that, well, we have aging population, okay, we have less students. And there has been, I found this information online, that we are decreasing in amount of schools. Like over the past years, 25 years, the amount of schools, elementary schools, have dropped almost twice. Think about that. But then Finnish education is really, really known for being good. I didn't write this. This is a quote from qz.com. It used to be an educational superpower in 2000s, with all the good PISA results. But this is an excerpt from 2015. We still have Estonia and Finland performing really, really well. So the question of quality of education, right? Every country would like to provide really good quality of education. So this is something XR can probably solve as well, these kind of challenges, if you're pressured to provide really good education, but you notice that people in virtual reality learn much better. Isn't that kind of like a good fit? We also want to make sure that your students don't have any attention problems, they're focused, and then they're learning diverse skills, so they get to explore. And how do you get to explore? You get to explore through different experiences. So yeah, if we would approach, previous speaker already mentioned about, thinking about like importing education and viewing education as a product or as an experience. There's lots that can be done here. Examples of what kind of things we've been doing. So HUS stands for Helsinki University Hospital, and we teamed up with them regarding healthcare. They have a really good VR lab, so it's one of the most sophisticated and advanced in the world, actually. And you can see some really nice articles in Finnish leading technology and economics newspapers how the doctors of tomorrow are going to be trained in virtual reality. So right now we are offering a course together with them, so it's HUS and Accenture in Helsinki University about healthcare XR. And that's an opportunity for young doctors to to already get such a good exposure to existing different applications or the technology or invent something. And part of this course is participating in a hackathon. So they'll get all of this, practical experience already. And we've already participated in Junction. So does anybody know what Junction is? I assume everybody should know what Junction is, right? Junction is the largest European hackathon with roughly 1,500 employees. And we had a challenge on a health track last year. So 3 days, young technology enthusiasts are coding different challenges. And we provided a healthcare challenge together with HUS. And we asked them to come up with different kind of healthcare solutions. And there's lots of untapped potential there, right? You can save the distance, so maybe you can provide different services remotely. For example, thinking about empathy in XR or in virtual reality, providing experiences, or there has been lots of examples, rehabilitation, this kind of things. So it was really interesting to watch what kind of solutions the participants invented. And the winning one was really interesting. It was about seeking mental health help, but anonymously. And it was really a good impact because you think about it, for like developing countries where you don't have, for example, at all access to this kind of services, you would be able to provide it. Or then how scalable this kind of a solution could be. But also they emphasize this anonymity because in Western world, there's still stigma about seeking mental health help, right? So you can do something like in this industry. So that was really interesting. But if in previous speech there was mentioned about, in healthcare doesn't happen yet as much as we want for different kind of new solutions to happen. When we surveyed different healthcare executives, everybody is super excited about the future. They believe it's the future. They believe there's lots of expectations and lots of innovations coming from that. And when you're designing an experience in healthcare, you always have to think, with a problem that you're solving and different these kind of trends, So for example, aging demographics, aging population. One of the biggest problems what right now exists with old people, also in addition to like physical health, but kind of like emotional health, loneliness. Old people are lonely. And you can do different experiences for them there, right? Or then, everybody is talking right now about that we're sitting so much in offices or at work. How can you make your physical health much better? But if you combine it with different kind of, again, analytics and movement tracking and that you get immediate feedback about how you're performing or how you should be performing, you can utilize that in rehabilitation processes. That would be so much fun. We are really running out of a labor force in medical care. We don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough doctors. You can train them more efficiently, right? If it's faster in virtual reality. There was a really, when I was researching for this speech, there was really interesting solution they made, I think it was in US, Accenture, and they made this VR experience for training social workers. Those social workers that have to help families when there's lots of like different kind of problems, like there can be, for example, child abuse or different kind of really difficult situations. And for them, they don't know, when they're going to go and visit somebody's home, they open the door, they don't know what's going to happen there. It might be quite an unexpected dangerous situation. So in order to kind of like get prepared, they created this VR solution. And that solution gives you experiences. And I was really glad to hear very interesting speeches before in talks about, experience. And I think that's what people love, We love stories and we love experiences. We like as well, when technology can enable us to do something more. I really like these two pictures, juxtaposition, one next to another. In 8 years of adoption of mobile, look what has happened. This is a selection of Pope on St. Peter's Square, right? So screens everywhere. And then are we going to have collective new experiences, what that, it felt like being there? You can replay something. What if you missed it? Or then you participated remotely. Lots of people all around the world, on the globe, entering something. But you really have to get that really good experiences, right? It has to feel either realistic or it has to feel like a fairy tale. It depends on what kind of experience you're creating. But the quality of the experience, that's something you need to think about really well. Then, I know I'm going to be a little bit longer with my speech, but I already started late. But then, this is an example of a travel planner we did in our Liquid studio in Helsinki. This is a little bit old, but this is like an extension for the tourist industry. When I heard about this case, I was thinking, why would somebody want to plan their travel if they're going on a trip and they're going to get the real thing, right? Why would you want to plan your traveling in virtual reality? But then when we started working on this and I got more exposure to this is kind of like an extension to the experience of travel. So what this application does is that you can plan with your friends your future trip. And you can kind of get this pre-taste of, hey, I'm going to go to this place and we're going to choose this hotel and I like this room. And you can select your favorites and you can vote together in virtual reality. So it's like a really multi-user experience, right? And if you add this with something else, that's an extension of that entire experience. So how do we create immersive experiences? And I think the answer came already in the talk about video games. Ta-da! Storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. I had the pleasure to work in a really interesting case, which was a car crash simulation. And it was interesting because for what kind of an industry it was. It was for justice and public safety industry. How can you take the scene of a crime and put it into court for somebody to make decision on, right? So we had this case that was a virtual reality crash scene, which involved a lot of storytelling process in the beginning. We had a really numerous example of different cases where it can be, but we need to structure it and select one and create a story. But this was actually a real life case, about a crash, where you would have a driver not noticing a cyclist, and then they crash, but the guy on the back of the car, the passenger said that, hey, I actually noticed the cyclist, so you were supposed to stop, it's your mistake. And then you have the driver saying that, okay, but my speed was this slow, but then somebody witness on the street said, no, he was going much faster. And this is the situation, that the judge is facing in the court when they're making decisions. They have to evaluate every testimony and they have to hear witness. So it's a really complex situation, right? And when you have it abstractly on the paper, or then somebody saying but you don't know what it felt like being there. So we created this one demo. This is a real crossroad in Helsinki. We took some drones, create photogrammetry, created a model based on that. You can see you have a view of the entire area from up above. And where's our car? There. You can. Sorry, this isn't finished. You can turn on your simulation. You click play, right? Boom, something happened. But then you can switch the velocities of both moving objects, right? And you replay it. It looks a bit different now, like this, and then you can select the view, what the driver was supposed to see, right? So there are bushes there, and he didn't see. It was one of those hard crossroads, right? And then you can check the passenger on the back. Okay, that was a different view. And you can replay, and there's also an opportunity, to take out the documents there, so you can compare once again or try to remind yourself about what has somebody said about this case. So this is an example, how everything from gamification comes into your real life. And I thought it was super exciting because I also got to work, with people coming from justice or public safety and police, and sometimes all of us here, we are biased, right? Because we're interested in new technologies and we have tried the VR sets and we're already in this industry. But I got to work with people who've never seen a headset live in front of them before, right? So it was like creating something from zero. And as I said, our workflow, it involved lots of storytelling to find the right case. And then what we needed to do is that we need to identify with a persona who's going to be the end user. So that's going to be the judge, right? So we need to work with what service designers do. They create personas and then create customer journey maps of what experiences feel like. And we had to identify with the judge. And then we had to create a customer journey mapping of this future experience, and that proved to be quite challenging, but it was super fun. And then based on that, all of that descriptions, all of this facilitation and workshop work, we're able to write user stories quite in detail and then create an MVP, minimum viable product solution for this. And hold on, I'll go back here. This slide. So basically, our value was to the most important value proposition was to evaluate driver's testimony and create this sense of comparison. And that's why we chose to have, different views from different personas. And that's something you can create in virtual reality. That's not something you were able to create in the courtroom before, right? So This is an example of a empathy map canvas, something what you do. So you select your user, somebody in the beginning, and then you think about what is his goal. So who is this person you're empathizing with, right? It's the judge. And what does he hear? Well, he hears lots of different testimonies and conflicting different opinions, right? But he has a job to do. His function is to make the decision. So he needs to evaluate everything. And then when we've done this, when we've done all this, we had it all nicely put on, post-it notes, and it was kind of really good way to aggregate all of this information. And then suddenly you have this new challenge is that how do you translate that into virtual reality? And some of the things that I learned is that you have to start thinking about why am I here? We closed our eyes and we pretended, we're in virtual reality, and you ask the question, what is this environment and why am I here? So I'm here to see this comparison and see the situation, see the crime scene, right? And then you have to select your point of view. Is it going to be your first persona? So from whose eyes am I looking? Am I looking at something happening? There's one person, two, or then few moving objects? Or do you want to see from the first glance, from your own eyes, the situation? And in this particular case, we had all of the options. So we had to choose. And the very first thing, we kind of wanted to make it also simple, never underestimate your end user. They are not stupid. So make logical cues, but don't give away too much instructions. Don't create too many buttons. It's not a good thing, because then it's the same kind of user interface that you have already in your phone or in your PC, right? You have so many different commands and instructions. And this is one of the things, that proved to be all the time one of the biggest problems. I used to work at Nokia before, and do you remember the Symbian phones, how many commands they had? You had to press this and this and this and this to, fix your sound, and then you had to go all the way back, and next time you had to remember it again because you needed to put your volume down. You don't have to be an engineer to use your phone, right? And I remember there was one project, when they were removing different dialogues, they removed 500 and nobody really noticed. So the less kind of things, you have to click and do, maybe that's a good thing. But then also, when you're designing an experience in virtual reality, your setting is the actual plot. Your scenery is already going to give you clues about the story, what's happening here. Like here, you would put on the glasses and you have the car crash. And user interface. So this was really about the logic. We didn't want, although it really looked like right now, like something in an application on the phone, but this is something, the ideas, that came to my mind that, hey, the user experiences in the future are going to be totally different. Coming back to the Nokia example, when Nokia was basically the one that invented the touchscreen user interface, right? They had already a few prototypes, like in early 2000s. It was laying in the Ruoholahti office, in the patent folder. They tested and tried it. The technology wasn't ready back then. But then they also tested it, with executives, and they said, no, people are never going to like it. It's bad ergonomics. Nobody's going to use it, right? What's interesting, they asked the customers. It's not a question of just making a business decision. They asked the customers, so are you going to like this? And the customers actually in different surveys said, no, this is not the kind of thing we want. Look what's happening now. Does anybody use a button phone anymore? No. But thinking about this, what kind of user interfaces are going to be in the future? It can be something very different, And then you also, of course, have to think again. So when I created all of these steps, and I have my experience, so why am I here? Did I reach my goal? And what we did is, with this customer journey map, we actually kind of, customer journey maps, they're different kind of templates, but they usually have all of the same elements. So you think about who's your persona, what is he supposed to do, what are his actions? Okay, my action is to, in this case, to read this testimony or to compare it to this testimony. You have your expectations, so I expect this is going to be convincing, or I expect I'm going to get full information. Then you have different pain points. The pain point here was that, how do I visualize this? How do I compare? Or I'm not getting enough information about this view, right? So different kind of pain points. And we actually created a blueprint of the entire experience, like a customer journey. And this is kind of like creating a service that has never existed before, which was really exciting. I'm sorry this is in Finnish, but you get subtitles. virtual reality in courtroom. This is our
Tämä
office.
projekti lähti käyntiin tarpeesta, miten oikeudenkäyntiä voisi tehostaa, miten tuomarin kykyä ymmärtää asianosaisten väitteitä ja sitä historiallista tapahtumakulkua voitaisiin parantaa.
Liikenneonnettomuustapaus valikoitui demottavaksi, koska siinä saatiin demottua niitä asioita, joista saataisiin VR-lasien tuottama hyöty. Esimerkiksi nyt tässä meidän tapauksessa henkilöauto tulee kolmion takaa, jolloin se on väistämisvelvollinen, mutta näköesteistä ja pyöräilijän nopeudesta johtuen on mahdollista, että pyöräilijä jää esimerkiksi auton sivupalkin tai näköesteiden peittoon.
Tällä työkalulla käyttäjä pääsee itse kokemaan eri näkökulmista, mitä siinä oikeasti tapahtuu. Eli nyt tässä on tapahtunut se onnettomuus, siinä on ollut silminnäkijä ja siinä on ollut ne henkilöt, ketkä oli mukana, eli pyöräilijä ja autoilija. Mä voin katsoa sen silminnäkijän silmistä, katsoa koko tämän tilanneen yläkulmasta katsottuna ja tosiaan autoilijan ja pyöräilijän silmistä. Mä voin myös ohjata eri nopeuksia, mä voin vaihtaa, säätää auton nopeuksia. Sanotaan vaikka, että autoilija sanoi, että hän ajoi 40. Mä voin kokea, että miltä se näytti siltä, jos hän ajaisi 40. Sitten mä voin säätää sitä, että jos hän tulisikin 80. Olisiko näkynyt yhtä hyvin? Ei varmaan olisi.
Silloin kun VR-teknologia taipuu tällaiseen, että pystytään reagoimaan niihin mahdollisesti muuttuviin mielikuvia, muistikuvia, kertomuksiin, mun mielestä se tuo sitä todellista lisäarvoa siihen. Että me ei olla lukittu siihen, mitä esitutkinnassa ihmiset on kertonut. Parhaimmillaan tämä voi parantaa ihmisten oikeusturvaa.
Mun mielestä oli hienoa, että me pystyttiin yhdistämään eri toimialoja, sekä oikeusministeriöä ja poliisia ja sitten vielä tutkimusympäristöstä ja tuomaan ne ideat yhteen. Me pystyttiin kokeilemaan jotain ihan uutta. Tässähän me ollaan hyödynnetty Accenturen innovaatioarkkitehtuuria sekä Innovation Labeja ideoinnissa ja sitten studiota tässä toteutuksessa.
Tämä kokeilu oli mielestäni arvokas, ehkä heräte tai alku VR-teknologian hyödyntämiseen oikeudenkäynnissä ja sen tutkimiseen, että voidaanko sitä hyödyntää.
Ja mun mielestä antaa meille erinomaisen tilaisuuden, erinomaisen työkalun käydä keskustelua siitä, että mitä uusi teknologia nyt ja tulevaisuudessa voi tuoda oikeudenkäynteihin. Me tarvitaan sitä keskustelua koko juristiyhteisön voimin.
Yeah, so this kind of project. And as I just sort of went through some of the points, but there are lots of different lessons learned from the project, but once again emphasizing the importance of storytelling. And this is the thing that gets me so excited about also having this kind of a conference with audio and visual professionals and the gaming industry, is that there's going to be really demand for those kind of jobs. It was very interesting, but also, you need technology people, you need business people, you need your customer, but you also need a professional to create this kind of an immersive story. And when you look at all of these kind of reports, what are going to be the skills of the future and what you need to do, it's always that in top 3, there's always creative thinking and any kind of creative different tasks. And also, particularly, when you're discussing how AI is going to take away all of your jobs, what AI can do and what AI can't do. Well, AI can't creatively, think about use cases or, think about solutions on your behalf. It's good at automation, at least so far, We're not going to talk about into different kind of evil scenarios of the world. One thing, interesting comment. Your local member of parliament here from Estonia, Kalle Palling, I've heard him talk at a conference 1.5 years ago. It was actually also related to technology. And I really like this quote. He said that today LinkedIn, there are this many, social media managers, and then there's this many and this many bloggers, and then there are this many community managers. And 5 years ago, those jobs didn't exist, right? So it's really hard. We're exactly the same situation. Today, it's really hard to know what kind of jobs there are going to be tomorrow, or, in 5 years of time. And I think those kind of creative storytelling jobs and those that facilitate human interaction and then, all of those kind of skills are going to be really, really valuable. And last week, I saw this article in a newspaper that was about this girl. What a dream job. I mean, when I was small, I've never even could imagine, that somebody is going to be a fashion designer for video games. How cool is that? Seriously. And then, so this brings to my point that what kind of jobs are we going to have in the future? But yeah, this talk has been really, really positive so far. I'm super excited about emerging technologies, like all of you are here. But things that I did not talk about are something like VR sickness. That's an issue. I've never experienced it. I don't know if you have experienced it, but we need technology to solve that. Because sometimes, when you're for a really long time in VR, and if you're not feeling well, then all of this, what we just talked about, all this potential value, it's just gonna maybe work not for everybody. At the moment, what's really interesting, I found this research that if you ask people, if you go on the street and ask, like, why haven't you bought a VR headset before? Because not everybody has bought it, And then they're like, what's the value? Why would I need it? First of all, of course, it's a question of, disposable income. You're probably going to put your money elsewhere than buy, an expensive headset just for fun. Because, it's not valuable. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation. You want to create valuable experiences and services to adopt the industry, but it's going to get adopted once this value has already created. So we're at the moment facing maybe slower adoption rates that we would want. And also the artificial and inflexible current state of the technology. But then it got me thinking about a risk of this experience which is close enough. So I talked about when the surgeon can practice something at home at home, like a complex surgery, right? And then if you practice it very, very many times and he gets a feeling, oh, this is how it works, but then he goes and does the real thing, it doesn't feel like what he has practiced. There might be a discrepancy between the two different experiences, the real life and this one. And are we going to be basing then, our trust on this kind of like a professional that has done something which is almost like that? So that's quite a risk, I think. So the quality, I'm emphasizing the quality of experiences need to be really good, also from the technical perspective. And all of these kind of like scenarios, such a cliche threat out. Some people are really, this kind of like blockages into any kind of that new comes along. I don't want to do anything with this new technology. So there can be an opinion, that people are going to be saying that, well, everybody's in the virtual world. Don't people live anymore? The real thing, So you're going to get always those kind of opinions. And then also some serious questions about like, if it's so easy to create a healthcare experience or something, that you say is going to be valuable or used, then we come to this kind of all this regulations and everything. Because if people start spending too much time in virtual reality, how it's going to affect us as humans? And there's not enough research for that. So really food for thought, scary things. But what's next? I have only 2 slides left. Some bold predictions. By 2023, 0 office environments. Wouldn't that be cool? You don't have to go to office anymore. But then this would be, this can impact other different industries. So coming to, questions about, how innovation leads to different cross innovations or how it leads to different impacts onto other different industries. What if the real estate market is going to be really altered by something that, maybe large corporations are not even going to need anymore those large offices because their employees can work from home more flexibly. And then some more. There will be visual implant surgeries to give patients the ability to use XR without headsets, and screens will be dead. So are our mobiles going to be how long sticking around with us? And the first national government will make XR technologies the standard for delivering education. So there was already a few comments in the previous speech about should the educational institutions be worried about, or should the governments be worried about, if you have substitutes for a better education, nobody's going to be using their services. Okay, thank you very much. I'm not going to take any more time. I'm sorry to being so long. Thank you.
I don't think we have time for a question.
Okay.
Maybe one, maybe.
Okay, maybe one.
If there's anybody who has a question, maybe just one question. Okay, one.
Wow, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
About VR and the effects on sociability and tangible interactions, like 2030, for example, for a kid staying at home, putting the VR set, and he doesn't need to go to school anymore. He can take all his classes sitting home. what are your comments
Yeah,
on that?
I had a really good discussion with my colleagues about this. We were also like worried about this. And then it comes to, we were thinking about like, is that going to change the model of education? So for example, now you go to school, you get your, you learn something as in a lecture form, right? And then you go home and you get your homework and you do that, and then you come back and check it. Maybe there can be some kind of like effect, in this loop, in the sense that you learn something from home, but then you go to school afterwards to have this interaction with your fellow classmates and with the teacher to learn totally different kind of, way to maybe review what you have learned, or for this human interaction. So I don't know, it may sound like, maybe this is something that could happen, I don't know, 20 years from now on, or in some kind of like a future, that the actual model of education, that might be changed. So yeah, and I think humans are pretty good in finding meaningful interactions, the kinds of they need. So maybe, maybe the function of the school or education system can be twisted around, that you would go and search for that kind of interaction. But also think about like how easier right now it is to find fellow, like people that you think in the same way alike, or you're interested in the same kind of things online. For example, when I'm not designing any kind of services, or when I'm not doing any kind of like business research, I'm an illustrator. And I've been doing like fashion illustration for quite a long time. I've been illustrating for different magazines, and I get projects. I don't advertise. I have an Instagram account and people find me there. But people through the Instagram account, different other fashion illustrators, they were able to find me. And I've met different kind of really skilled other illustrators. I've never met them like live, face to face. Somebody's in Australia and somebody in the US and somebody elsewhere. And we're talking about like different like trends or techniques, or, how to draw watercolor, this kind of thing. And it's kind of like a community. So virtual reality would be even nicer to interact, to collaborate with them in a totally different way. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Olesja.
Thank you.
And